www.islamicwaves.com.
That emotional feeling of love and affection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so strong that overcomes the situation of grief and miseries. And whatever misery that reaches a person who has a strong connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, actually that state of emotion, that affection and that passion overcomes that grief, and that minimizes the sorrow, the misery, the affliction. That is minimized. So even at that state, although he might be suffering from a disease, although he might be having a shortage of income, he might not be having a very good life apparently, but the connection, the feeling, the emotion, the passion within his heart would be so strong that he would never feel the displeasure as in case of those who are disobedient. And when they are afflicted with these circumstances, when they are afflicted and then when they encounter these miseries, their effect, their sorrow and their grief would be unimaginable. That would be so intense that they would curse themselves and they would realize that what disobedience they have done. So the state has a difference. A person with good relations with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his emotions, his feeling would overcome, his passion would overcome those miseries. And those who are spending their life in disobedience, having a weaker relation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, would surely feel the pain and grief of those miseries in this world. And naturally, the success is the success of hereafter. We could recall many instances where the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, after acceptance of Islam, after embracing Islam, they encountered many tough times. Even the Sahabas, the Prophet himself, the journey of Taif, the Sha'ab Abi Talib, when the whole companion together with the Prophet was segregated from the community, and their activities were totally boycotted, and there was an embargo upon them. Those 3 years of misery, it doesn't mean that there were no displeasures, there were no hardship. Yes, there would be, but the connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the passion and love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would overcome those grief and sorrow. Your sentiments would be delighted with the relation, with the bondage, with the passion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is the gist. Even the prophets, Hazrat Nuh alayhi salam, Hazrat Noah, Hazrat Isa alayhi salam, Hazrat Maryam alayhi salam, they all encountered problems, which were problems apparently, but the relation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was so strong that even in those times of misery, apparent misery, they could never feel the displeasure. They were always so connected with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is what I want to explain, that if we reconcile our relation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if we reconcile our bondage with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the passion and love within our heart is developed, and we get connected with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our lives would naturally turn into blessings, into pleasure, a life of joy and entertainment. We could feel the happiness and we could really enjoy the life in this world, regardless of what the apparent situation is. There are the stories of Sahaba, the stories of the Prophet, the stories of the awliya, the hardship they encountered. Why? And by recalling those hardships, by recalling those miseries, by recalling those problems which they face despite of their strong relation, would naturally have a very positive impact upon our lives, and we would have a very strong bondage. We would start developing that passion, that love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And finally, when we reach that state of acceptance, that state of passion and love, our lives would totally change, and that would be full of happiness and joy. If you have ever encountered a person who is in love with any lady, any woman, you could well imagine that he is totally ignorant. He cannot feel the surrounding, as if he does not live in this world. He gets so connected and involved with that immaterial personality. The love, the effect of that love, the effect of that involvement makes him so unaware, and you could say that he is so disconnected with the world because of that relation. So when a person falls in love with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when the person falls connected and involves himself with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that relation is unimaginable. That would overcome all the miseries, all the setbacks, all the displeasures of the life, and you would never feel even. You would be so connected with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Your imagination would not be limited to this world only. You would totally understand that the life in this world is limited, and one day or the other this would end, and we would all depart to the hereafter. And those who are successful ones, those who have performed righteous in this world, would be awarded with the blessings and the bounties of Jannah, and would be facing the gatherings, and would be in the gatherings of the prophets and the Sahabas. By recalling those rewards even, that minimizes the displeasures, and he starts thinking that these displeasures, these miseries which afflict him is because of his own deeds, and maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is making an examination for him, or maybe washing away the effects of sin, and he is elevating his level, his degree for the hereafter. That is another aspect. All these things should be taken into consideration, and we should always try to make the relation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stronger, that the love and passion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala overcomes all the relations and all the miseries and displeasures of this world. With this we would like to conclude, and I hope that this is the primary objective in our lives, that we should refrain from sin, from disobedience, and at least try to perform the obligations laid by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Prophet. And later on it would naturally attract and would compel us to perform good deeds and optional rituals. وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وأصحابه أجمعين آمين برحمتك يا رب.
Commands to be will always become a reality. Everything Allah commands to be will always become a reality. Everything Allah commands to be will always become a reality. Allah Ta'ala, Allah Ta'ala, Allah Ta'ala, Allah Ta'ala.
www.islamicwaves.com